Hello and welcome to the 46th annual meeting of the Greater Worcester Community Foundation. My name is Chris Collins, the chair of the board, and I welcome you to what I hope will be our last virtual meeting. We are so pleased you could be with us today. I saw our former board chair, Joe Salois, on the way out of Polar Park after the Woo Sox victory on opening day. And we had a world-class embrace. It was a return from the war type of embrace. For me, it was a moment of a beginning, of a return to normalcy. I would not give up that embrace for anything in the world. As the past year has made so abundantly clear, in this community, we care for and about each other. There are no contingencies. Doctors, nurses, first responders, medical researchers, teachers, food pantries, supply distributors, grocery store employees, our own city manager, our field hospital, the United Way, this foundation. All of us rowing in the same direction against a COVID storm. Joe, thanks for that embrace. For 46 years, people and organizations who live or do business here, or who once lived here, or operated here, or who had an experience in our central Massachusetts community that left such a positive impression on them, have been funding our foundation through direct contributions, by the creation of a wide variety of donor-advised funds and field of interest funds, and by the establishment of agency funds. Since our inception, we have distributed nearly $150 million to fulfill the needs of our community and to make an impact in areas that need assistance. And even with that impressive giving history, our foundation stands at nearly $180 million and growing. It is a true wonder. As each year passes, our ability to impact the community increases. We know we can do better, and we are committed to doing so. Behind all of what the foundation stands for is the selfless care of community and the careful stewardship of the money entrusted to us. I am but a passing steward of this great enterprise. I understand my assignment, and I want you to know I will do my very best in the short time I have in this role to be faithful to the task. I tried to think of a way to encapsulate the purpose and the spirit of the foundation. This year, at the Academy Awards, the Best Director Award went to Chloe Zhao. This is what she said in her acceptance speech. "When I was growing up in China, my dad and I would play this game. We would memorize classic Chinese poems and texts, and we would recite them together and try to finish each other's sentences." She then recited the first phrase from the three-character classic, which she translated into, "People at birth are inherently good." Those 6 words had such great impact on me when I was a kid, she said, and I still truly believe them today. Even though sometimes it might seem like the opposite is true, I have always found the goodness in people I met everywhere I went in the world. So this is for anyone who has the faith and courage to hold on to the goodness in themselves and to hold on to the goodness in each other, no matter how difficult it is to do that. At the foundation, we believe those words too. The people and organizations that have donated or entrusted their funds to the Greater Worcester Community Foundation have interests that span the human experience. Addressing food insecurity, providing basic needs, creating educational opportunities that begin early and continue for life, combating health disparities, racism of every kind, and injustice wherever it's found, and fostering a vibrant, creative community where all belong. This is our foundation. Those who participate with us in our collective mission often will never meet the people or the organizations whom they support. They pay it forward because they care about our community and because they believe people at birth are inherently good. And so in this community, we care for and about each other. There are no contingencies. Thanks. Okay, a few housekeeping items to take care of before we get started. First off, this meeting is being recorded for archival purposes, so you can go back and watch it again if you'd like. I know what I'll be doing this weekend. We'll be voting on 4 items of business this afternoon. Board members and corporators will be able to do so via an online poll, and we'll get into those instructions in just a moment. And finally, while there will not be the ability to ask questions during the meeting, if you have one, please send them to Kelly at the Foundation at the email on your screen. Now, since this is a virtual meeting and we are usually all together in Mechanics Hall, we have to still vote. It's really a simple process. You can do it by texting from your phone. Here's how it works. Go to the text messaging app on your phone and type Revelation P536 to the number 22333. So instead of a phone number, just enter in 22333, and then in the message of the text, type in Revelation P536. You'll then be prompted to type in either Y for yes or N for no for each vote. That's it. It's very easy. We also have a very packed agenda we're going to get through in the next hour, starting off with one of our 2 Renaissance Awards. We didn't get to hand out the award in 2020, so we made the decision to recognize last year's winner this afternoon. And of course, the 2021 award will be given later in the program as well. We'll have remarks from our favorite state senator, Harriet Chandler, followed by reports by our finance and governance committees. We'll hear from our interim president and CEO, Carolyn Stempler, and our keynote speaker, Fred Blackwell, the CEO of the San Francisco Community Foundation. And then we'll wrap it up with our 2021 Renaissance Award. Okay. Now that we've got all our housekeeping out of the way, we can move ahead with the meeting. The first order of business is to accept the 2020 annual meeting minutes, which were distributed by the staff last week via email. We're handling motions internally here with the few people that we have in the room. So can I please have a motion to accept the 2020 annual meeting minutes as written?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? And hearing none, let's have our vote. So the team is here. They're going to open our first vote of the evening. You simply respond with a Y or an N. If you need the instructions, they're up on the screen again. Okay. The poll is open, and we're receiving the votes. Excellent. The minutes have been approved. Thank you so much. Okay, the business portion of the meeting is now underway, and we wanted to start off this year's meeting by recognizing some really outstanding people I've had the pleasure of working with the last few years. Patsy Lewis and Matt Wally have both been faithful members of our board. Patsy, your quiet and thoughtful wisdom was valued by all. Your long history of giving back to our community has enhanced a great Worcester tradition. Matt, or Mr. Mayor, as I like to call him, you are a determined, committed, sturdy, and honorable colleague. Your devotion to our community proves that this important tradition has carried on to a new generation. If these were normal times, we'd bring both Matt and Patsy up to stage to give them a round of applause and bestow upon them a token of our appreciation. But alas, we're here on the internet, so the staff will make sure those tokens are in the mail to you shortly from myself, the board, the corporators, the staff, and the entire Worcester community. Thank you, Patsy and Matt. Next up on the agenda is one of my favorite parts of the annual meeting. Each year, we get to do it twice today, so this is really great. The presentation of the 2020 Renaissance Award, albeit 1 year later. I'll turn it over to the Foundation's interim president and CEO, Carolyn Stempler, to announce the award.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm very happy to be here with all of you this afternoon. As Chris said, this year we're presenting the 2020 Renaissance Award. Last year at this time, we were 100% focused on the pandemic emergency response. As we began planning for this year's annual meeting, it became clear that we could not just gloss over or skip last year's winner. So here we are, the 2020 Renaissance Award winner in 2021. The 2020 Renaissance Award recipient has had an instrumental role in helping local Asian American Pacific Islander immigrants find their way in central Massachusetts. From helping AAPI youth apply to and access higher education, to helping immigrant families open businesses in Worcester, especially in the Green Street neighborhood. She has been a tremendous resource for the entire AAPI community in central Massachusetts, but particularly one of Worcester's largest immigrant populations. In 1975, our 2020 award winner was airlifted off the roof of the U.S. Embassy in Saigon and later immigrated to the United States, where she completed a college degree and raised a family of 3 with her husband. In 2018, she went back to school, graduated from MIT's Sloan School of Management, and has been an unrelenting, passionate Worcester voice. She's a tremendous example of resourcefulness and resilience that so many of us here in Worcester admire. We are very pleased to award the Foundation's 2020 Renaissance Award to Anvu Sawyer. We're going to give Anvu the opportunity to speak in a moment. Instead of me continuing to list Anvu's many accomplishments, we would like to invite someone very special to say a few words about our recipient.
Hi, I'm Joyce Augustus, and it is my pleasure and honor to present the Greater Worcester Community Foundation Renaissance Award to Anvu Sawyer, the Executive Director of the Southeast Asian Coalition of Massachusetts, for her exceptional leadership and dedication to serving the Asian and Worcester community. You are the heart and soul of the Southeast Asian Coalition, the epitome of a Renaissance woman who is well deserving of this award. So congratulations, for your excellence in the Worcester community. And as they say in Vietnamese, Xin Shuk Mug.
Congratulations again, Anvu, and thank you so much for all you do for the Vietnamese community, the AAPI community, and all of Worcester. She's muted.
Lifelong dream and passion. So I'm extremely thankful for the foundation for this recognition. But I would be remiss to think that I alone deserve this award. The important work the entire South Asian Coalition of Central Massachusetts team, Boa Newgate, Thư Nguyen, Cham Nguyen, have done over the years has provided so many marginalized and displaced families the resources they need to grow. I'm honored to be a part of this organization, and I'm so thankful to the foundation for not only this award, but their continued commitment to help families preserve their heritage and achieve their dreams here in Worcester. In my 30 years working in the nonprofit world, I've learned from the Greater Worcester Community Foundation that providing thoughtful support to the most marginalized populations can have an impact that lasts for generations by giving in such a way that also restores people's dignity and humanity. For this, I'm forever grateful to a Greater Worcester Community Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you again, Anvu. And now over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Carolyn, and congratulations, Anvu. It's so well deserved. Our next guest needs no introduction, but because this is a formal meeting, I'm required to do it. Massachusetts State Senator Harriet Chandler is currently the Massachusetts Senate President Emerita and Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on Bills in the Third Reading, as well as the Vice Chair of the Joint Committee on Healthcare Financing. At a statewide level, she champions for all the Commonwealth residents, but here in Worcester, she champions for all of us. Please welcome via Zoom, Senator Harriet Chandler.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for inviting me to speak at your annual meeting this afternoon. I'm here with you all today after a very long year that at times seemed like it would never end. I do, however, offer myself a little indulgence of hope, and I hope you can too. As COVID numbers drop, vaccinations rise, and masks start to be removed, we are on the cusp of a return to some sense of normal. The exciting and fresh sense of hope has been made possible because of two things. First, the miraculous and overwhelming effective vaccines. And second, the long, hard, and trying work that organizations like the Greater Worcester Community Foundation have dedicated themselves to over the past 14 months. The foundation has secured millions of dollars from the state through a partnership with my office and others, and has invested that money right here in the community. You have partnered with United Way of Central Mass and the City of Worcester to establish and manage the extraordinary Worcester Together Fund, which has supported vulnerable people, granting funds to cover lost income, to support those with unstable housing, and to fight food insecurity. This pandemic, for all its horrors, has demonstrated the power of the tight-knit Central Massachusetts community. We live and work in a place where politicians, nonprofit leaders, neighbors, and community members know each other by their first names and can come together in hard times to solve even the most challenging of problems. The Greater Worcester Community Foundation knows its community much better than any bureaucrat in Boston ever could. So it was essential that when needed relief money was approved on Beacon Hill, it was directed to the foundation and to its sister community organizations, because you all have the knowledge, the network, and the wherewithal to make effective and necessary investment in the residents who need it most. I have been incredibly proud to work alongside the foundation and support your ongoing mission, even long before this pandemic began, and I hope long after the pandemic has been defeated. That being said, we can never forget that immense disparities and injustices were swiftly revealed when the pandemic swept over us all. People of color and low-income communities have been disproportionately sickened by COVID and have disproportionately borne the brunt of the economic downturn. Many have faced unemployment, have struggled to pay rent, and have had no choice but to go into work to make ends meet. Working from home and socially distancing was simply not an option for these people. These disparities already existed long before the pandemic, and they will persist, unfortunately, long after the pandemic, if we do not address them head on. Our work is never finished. Even as our friends, family members, and coworkers get vaccinated, even though the Commonwealth has one of the best vaccination rates per capita in the country, we still face the hard fact that as of last week, quote, 36% of the state's Latino residents and 39% of Black residents have received at least one vaccine dose, compared with 57% of white residents. These are figures that can be found in the Boston Globe. Racial disparities and economic disparities remain wide, so we must remain steadfast in our mission as public servants to serve our community's most vulnerable residents in the wake of one of the worst pandemics and economic downturns in our lifetime. It is my job as a legislator, and yours as a valued community institution, to ensure that public and private resources are aligned to best serve the health and well-being of our neighbors. Though a vaccinated person may be able to eat out inside a restaurant again, and though that may feel like the ultimate success, there are thousands of our neighbors who are reeling because they have lost family members, job opportunities, and an entire year that was spent worrying about how to make ends meet while keeping healthy and safe. Our work is not done. I am grateful to the Greater Worcester Community Foundation because in the darkest days of this past year, the foundation invested time, they invested money, and they invested hard work to ensure that our neighbors were supported. I know that I will continue to support their mission in the years to come, and I hope you will too. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Chandler, for those wonderful comments and for making the time to be with us today. We hope to see you very soon in our city. We now turn to some of the business of our annual meeting, where we'll hear from Tom Bartholomew, the Greater Worcester Community Foundation's treasurer, as he leads us through last year's financials. But before I turn it over to Tom, I just want to say, Tom, thank you so much for all of your hard work at the foundation over the past few years, and especially your mentorship of our finance team, and within that team, your mentorship of Diana Lane. It's really been extraordinary. I know that she's benefited so much from your guidance, but thank you for everything that you've done for us.
Thanks for the kind words, Chris. It's been an interesting year. Presenting the 2020 financial statements, as you might imagine, will be a little bit more involved and difficult this year after this meeting, not today. There's a tremendous amount of activity that happened that was brought on by the fiscal response which COVID created, the foundation received during the year. The recently audited annual financial statements recap in great detail the various changes in contributions and distributions which were made. As Chris said, special recognition should be made to the financial operations of the foundation led by Diana Lane for the effort and effectiveness that went into quickly grasping the magnitude of the workload and for the seamless results to all that happened while working remotely. All donors and fund holders can take great solace and pride in knowing that the audit of our financial activity demonstrated that the business of running the foundation's business stands in good stead and capable hands. The audit has a great deal of explanation and disclosure pertaining to all of this unusual activity, much of which will be confusing to the first-time reader. This additional disclosure is necessary so that the permanent record reflects the most accurate view possible into the regular ongoing operations of the foundation. Thanks to the auditor, Alexander, Aronson, and Finning for helping us to make the statements as accurate and fluid as possible. It's certainly unlike any other audit I've seen prior to this. Thanks to the Audit Committee Chair, Maria Allard, for ongoing coordination of a well-staffed committee of volunteers, and also for organizing the Foundation's new Finance Committee. Both of these very important functions will assist in future guiding leadership of the Foundation. So, reading the balance sheet from the bottom up, always get to the good part first. Assets of the Foundation ended the year 2020 at approximately $180 million compared to the 2019 balance of $167 million. Successful investment management performance, approximately 10.7% for the year, was driven by a newly balanced portfolio allocation put in place by the investment committee at the beginning of 2020, just prior to the pandemic. This allocation strategy continues to bear fruit in 2021, as we've enjoyed performance ahead of benchmarks since the spring of last year, when the investment committee was able to fully implement the chosen investment major shifts in allocation. Great thanks to the investment committee for all the wisdom and hard work during the year. Our 7:30 meetings come and go very quickly in the morning. This committee did an outstanding job identifying, agreeing, and implementing portfolio changes, which were absolutely necessary and have proven effective. My personal thanks to my committee members, including Abe Haddad, Warner Fletcher, Dix Davis, Chris Collins, who stands next to me, Chris McCarthy, Ellen Ferrante, Ann Tripp, Jeff Solomon, Jim Collins, and Tim Jerry, and my goodness, I hope I didn't forget anybody. As in the past, all of our volunteer efforts continue to be ably supported by Jeff Croto from Prime Buckholz, our chosen investment consultant. I can personally tell you, after 44 years in the business, that Prime Buckholz Group continues to do outstanding work on our behalf and continues to have the confidence of the investment committee. To put all this into perspective, receipts of the foundation and distributions to all grant recipients, including the distribution of Worcester Together funds, nearly tripled the cash flow of the foundation's books during the year. Gifts to the foundation totaled approximately $14.3 million in 2020, compared to $4.9 million in 2019. Again, $14.3 million was received versus the prior year at $4.9 million. Of the $14.3 million, $8.7 million was from Worcester Together, and $4.1 million of more traditional fund contributions were made in 2020. In addition, agency funds continue to make an impact on the foundation's assets and activities, adding approximately $1.2 million to their own funds during the year, versus $2.8 million the prior year. As a result of all this extraordinary activity, total distributions inflated beyond $14 million in 2020 versus 2019 at just slightly less than $7 million. The largest difference obviously being the pass-through of the Worcester Together money of $8.7 million. Traditional discretionary grants by agencies, scholarships, donor-advised funds, and the foundation were made. Donor-advised and agency funds were slightly lower in 2020 than 2019 by about $500,000, by about $500,000. An apparent unexpected consequential effect, reduced activity in some agencies and donors holding back gifts due to the economic uncertainty, I suspect. Please know the Foundation's Distribution Committee did distribute 4% of discretionary available assets, as is the Foundation's policy. As I alluded to earlier, there were hundreds of new donors logged into the Foundation's accounting system for the first time, certainly hopefully not for the last time. There will be great need in days ahead, so please consider making ongoing contributions to the effort which began with the Foundation and Worcester Together. Operating expenses for the Foundation remarkably came in under budget, but matched the 2019 levels of approximately $2.1 million. Reflected efficient internal controls and processes, and also was due to unplanned staff cost reductions as a number of open personnel positions were not filled during the year, primarily because the focus toward the community needs through the ongoing Worcester Together effort rather than many new initiatives which were previously planned prior to the pandemic. The operating budget produced a surplus of revenue over expenses for the first time in many years. Success in increased annual giving, new foundation commitments, and support and investment fees on increased balances all help to improve the annual performance. Small editorial, the need to build reserves is of paramount importance to the longevity and continuity of the Foundation's efforts. The future will assuredly deliver and be other trying times and economic times, hopefully not another pandemic, but having reserves to meet obligations and run this business, make community impacts, and fund unforeseen needs is a given. We continue to have reserves of less than 50% of 1 year's operating expenses, and my personal target is to see that we have reserves equal to 1 year's operating expenses at some point in the future. In summary, during the very trying time in 2020, the financial operations of the Foundation remained in good standing, and the financial health of the organization continues to improve at a measurable pace. The new year is off to a solid start, and the Executive Committee remains cautiously optimistic that we can operate the Foundation within budget for 2021, albeit we will encounter unbudgeted expenses for an executive search and increased staffing to get the foundation back to its normal course of business. There are other initiatives which will be evaluated case by case and will be initiated as funds become available. We are committed to running a balanced budget and strive to continue to expand upon the financial success recently experienced. We could not do it without the support of all you donors in attendance today and all those who have included the foundation in their planned giving. Please feel free to contact me if I can be of any assistance in explaining the year of 2020 and all that happened financially. It was a challenge that was met head-on by all the volunteers and succeeded with the assistance of your foundation's dedicated staff. Thank you for allowing me to serve.
Well, thank you, Tom. That was an excellent report, and thank you again for your wise guidance and counsel. We're all looking forward to see where we go from here. Up next is my good friend Linda Luft, Chair of our Nominations and Governance Committee. She will present the slate of our new board members, our returning board member, and a change in our bylaws. All of the slates will require voting. So if you put down your phone to grab a beverage, find it, get your phone, and get ready to vote. Linda Luft.
Thank you, Chris. And hello, everyone. The Nominations and Governance Committee works to support the board's optimal performance throughout the year and to prepare for succession of directors, officers, and corporators. They are also responsible for maintaining and recommending changes to the bylaws. I would like at this time to thank Joyce Augustus, Maddie Castile, Patsy Lewis, Nadia McGorthy, and Kim Salmon for serving this year. You are great colleagues. We are pleased to recommend the following to a first term as member of the Board of Directors: Che Anderson from UMass Medical School and Anbu Sawyer from the Southeast Asian Coalition of Central Massachusetts. And for election to a second term as director, we have Kimberly Salmon from the Hanover Insurance Group. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept these nominees as new or continuing members of the Board of Directors.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Under discussion. Hearing none, we are now accepting votes on your phones for either a yay or a nay. Let me just give it a minute. Thank you. Thank you very much, and the vote passes. The committee has recruited many talented individuals to become part of the foundation family and recommends the following individuals be elected as new corporators: Ken Bates, Leah Bradley, Lou Brady, Mary Beth Campbell, Scott Casper, David Connell, Lucy Hale, Jason Homer, Deborah Jackson, Steve Kerrigan, Dennis Kerrigan, James Madigan, Warren Maginot, Jose Perez, Anbu Sawyer, Ronald Waddell, John Weaver, and Stephanie Williams. In addition, we are pleased that many corporators whose terms are up for renewal this year have agreed to continue. The names were emailed to you this week and appear on your screen. I will now entertain a motion to accept these nominees as new or continuing corporators.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Under discussion? Hearing none, we are now accepting votes on your phones again for either a yay or a nay. It should appear on the screen, and we'll give it a second. And the vote passes. Thank you. Lastly, a bylaw change. The committee is recommending a change to the foundation's bylaws, which would, under urgent circumstances, allow the number of days required to call a meeting be changed from the existing 7 days to 3 days. The language is on your screen, and it will appear at the end of section 3.7, Notice of Meetings, and will read: in the event there is, in the opinion of the Executive Committee, an urgent or emergency need for the board to meet, notice may be sent by electronic mail with 3 days' notice. Notice of such an emergency meeting shall contain in the subject heading an indication that the matter is urgent. I will now entertain a motion to accept this change to the bylaws as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Under discussion? Hearing none, we are now once again accepting votes on your phones for either a yay or a nay. Just give it a second so everyone can register their votes. Thank you. And the vote passes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I turn the podium over to our board chair, Chris Collins. Chris.
Thank you so much, Linda. Beautifully done. And welcome Che and An Vu as board members, and to Kim for returning for another term. I can't wait to work with all of you in the coming months. Up next, we're going to hear from our newly elected interim president and CEO, Carolyn Stempler. It is my honest pleasure to introduce Carolyn this evening. Her original hometown was St. Louis, Missouri, but like so many of us born elsewhere, she has so clearly adopted the greater Worcester area as her home. And how fortunate are we? Her relationship with the foundation began as a volunteer. Then Carolyn became a board member, then clerk, and then the board chair. Earlier this year, when asked, she readily accepted the role as our interim president and CEO. And even though the last few months have been a whirlwind, Carolyn, you've taken naturally to the role, and we are grateful for the stability you have delivered. Smart, professional, successful, and always kind, a combination of traits infrequently found. These attributes are a model for all leaders in our community. Carolyn, thank you for being such a great partner in this endeavor. Now please welcome our interim president and CEO, Carolyn Stempler.
Wow. Thank you so much for that introduction, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking with all of you today. When I was first introduced to the foundation in 2007, I was immediately moved by its mission. So in 2008, thanks to my friend and colleague Rob Adler, I joined the foundation as a corporator, just like many of you with us today. Here was this place whose overarching agnostic mission was only to see Worcester succeed. And for all of us who are passionately committed to lifting everyone up, we know that is a huge responsibility. Our foundation doesn't focus on just one societal issue challenging our community. It takes the needs and wishes of those entrusting us with funds, many of whom are watching this now, and distribute those funds to areas where there is the most need. Areas like health and well-being, early childhood, equal access to education, homelessness, immigration, social justice, and just as important, arts and culture. Especially now, for we will need our artists and their passion as we begin to heal as we emerge from the pandemic. As the first Black female board chair, and now the interim president and CEO of the foundation, I would be remiss if I did not focus on equality as we move to close the gaps that were widened to a critical level over the past few months. We here at the foundation are focusing our efforts both internally and externally on systemic inequalities that affect all of us today, and for some of us, with true lived experiences. It is critically important during this particular moment in our collective history as a country and in central Massachusetts that growth and prosperity be equitable. And it's our role as one of the largest grant providers in the region to make sure equity is one of our highest priorities as we approach our new normal. My role in the past few months has changed, and now I get to work closely with an extremely talented and passionate staff, which motivates me to be even more committed to our purpose. While my experience as a corporate executive and my decade-long association with the foundation has enabled me to the ability to take on this role, it was the support and leadership of many of you I have met over the years that has been giving me the invaluable insight into the importance of having a measurable impact on our community. I'm honored to be here and grateful for the trust that you, the board, the staff, and the community have placed in me. Our role as a community foundation has changed in many ways over the past year, but it also strengthened our resolve in providing equity and inclusion for all. Throughout the pandemic, it has become clear that Worcester cares about its neighbors. Through our Worcester Together Fund, formed in collaboration with my dear friend and colleague Tim Garvin at the United Way, we were able to provide support and resources to over 150 caring organizations throughout Worcester County. Earlier this year, we distributed a total of $1 million to organizations we challenged to be visionaries to share our post-pandemic future. By incorporating and establishing new focus areas in the healthcare, youth and family, arts and culture sectors, again, we create pathways for systemic change. We're embarking on an exciting future, the likes this foundation and this community has never before seen. As Chris mentioned the Woo Sox earlier, all of the economic impact and buzz that comes with the excitement of the new baseball team and park, the foundation is also riding the momentum of Worcester's success. But now more than ever, we all shoulder the burden of responsibility for being a voice for all of the citizens in our region. Our foundation must become a five-tool player, to use a baseball metaphor. A five-tool player, which is extremely rare, is one is adept at speed, throwing, fielding, hitting for average, and hitting for power. Amongst the elite of the five-tool players are Ricky Henderson, Bo Jackson, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr., and Willie Mays, just to name a few. It is important that we strive to be one of those rare five-tool players for Worcester and all of Central Massachusetts. We must be equally adept at philanthropy, grant-making, financial management and stewardship, community collaboration, and overall community impact. Now, there are plenty of baseball players out there that don't have the five tools. They have great careers, but the ones that do it all are the ones that truly make a lasting impact. That's what we are striving for, to be Worcester's five-tool philanthropic grant-making player. Yes, I am personally excited about the Woo Sox, having attended 2 games in its opening week. But I'm even more excited about the foundation and our community emerging from this pandemic stronger than ever. To achieve that goal, we will have to be a flexible, compassionate, and financially strong organization to continue to realize our mission statement of enhancing our community now and in the future through philanthropic leadership. Soon, the Greater Worcester Community Foundation, through our investments and continued growth, will become the largest foundation in Central Massachusetts. And through collaboration with partners like the United Way, the Barr Foundation, and those who have invested in this community, Worcester will become a model at the state and federal level how a community comes together to enact change. We will continue to convene, to listen, to evolve, for our purpose comes from you. On behalf of the staff, the board, and our valued volunteers, I want to thank you for putting your trust in us to be a philanthropic leader in Worcester. This organization is woven into every fiber of the great city and our amazing region. Through each of your efforts, we are creating a more equitable and inclusive community. I am optimistic, for our future is bright. I am honored to be a part of it. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing each of you in person, and as Chris said, to hug you again. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for this year's meeting, Mr. Fred Blackwell. Fred is the CEO of the San Francisco Foundation, one of the largest community foundations in the country, an Oakland native. Fred is a nationally recognized community leader with a long-standing career in the Bay Area. Prior to joining the San Francisco Foundation, he served as interim city administrator for the city of Oakland and the executive director of the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency. Since joining the San Francisco Foundation in 2014, Fred has led his organization in a renewed commitment to social justice through an equity agenda focused on racial and economic inclusion. Fred and his work is what our foundation is looking towards as a leader in the community foundation ecosystem. It is my pleasure to introduce Fred Blackwell live via Zoom from San Francisco.
Thank you, Carolyn, for that kind introduction. It's very nice to be with you all, and I have already seen a number of connections that have made me feel really at home. Carolyn, my family too is from St. Louis, and so resonate with that. And your reference to Ricky Henderson is really fabulous for an Oakland kid like me who grew up idolizing Ricky Henderson and the Oakland A's, and so that reference really resonated with me as well. And I also I had 2 tours of duty actually at Northfield Mount Hermon summer school. And so the region actually is not one that is totally unfamiliar to me, although that was a long time ago. I just wanted to talk to you all and was asked to talk to you all about our journey at the San Francisco Foundation, focused in on racial equity and economic inclusion. And I'll try to share that in a brief amount of time and give you the kind of details that I can over kind of 15 or 20 minutes. But really just want to thank the board and the staff of the foundation for the invitation to share our story. We have a lot of belief and conviction and passion around the work that we do, but I have to kind of give a kind of disclaimer in the beginning of speeches like this all the time, because I'm very familiar with the fact that when you see one community foundation or one community, you've seen exactly that one community foundation. And so what works for one community foundation may not work for others. But also just wanted to say that, you know, we think that what we're doing, we believe in it. But, you know, actually the verdict is still out as to whether it works in our community as well. I mean, racial equity and economic inclusion are tricky, thorny, complex issues. And so I just wanted to kind of share that at the beginning. When I think about our story, though, I think about it really in 3 phases. One is kind of the early phase of our work, which was about listening, visioning, and strategy. The second phase of our work was really about, and continues to be about, implementing and executing on our vision and strategy. And then, you know, the third piece of the work and the phase of the work is the one that we are in right now. I mean, for an organization focused in on racial equity and economic inclusion, the last year has really made us think a lot about what our next phase is. And so I want to touch a little bit on that as well. But kind of starting off with the first phase, I've been at the foundation now for almost 7 years, and I spent the first 3 months or so just trying to find the bathroom. But after that, quickly pivoted to external work. And our listening and visioning and strategy work really revolved first around getting into discussion with the community. We're the San Francisco Foundation, but we actually serve the region in the Bay Area. And so we have a regional footprint. And for that reason, it's important for us to get into the different corners of the region and the community when we are doing. We held about 7 or 8 community meetings over a 6-month period of time in different corners of the community, like I said, but all of them kind of had 100 or 150, 200 people and got engaged. And so over the course of that period, we engaged probably over 1,000 residents of our community. And we asked the same questions every time. You know, how would you describe your neighborhood or community? But more importantly, what are the issues on the horizon that you're struggling with and grappling with? And I won't belabor you with everything that we heard, but one of the things that we heard consistently were concerns about kind of economic inclusion and racial equity, and the desire on the part of many communities to not let someone's zip code or their race or ethnicity or their gender or their family's economic status determine how much access to opportunity they would have here in the Bay Area. And so we heard that really consistently, and that became a real important theme for us as we were thinking about where we wanted to go as the community foundation serving the region. The second thing that we did from a listening point of view is that we held these what I call consultative sessions, where we invited our partners, thought leaders, policy people from the region into the foundation and had half-day conversations with them, sharing what we had been doing over the last 5 years, but asking them as well what they saw as the key issues on the horizon and how we might be responsive to those issues as a community foundation. And again, issues having to do with racial equity and economic inclusion and neighborhood came up quite a bit. The last thing that we did from a listening perspective is that we did a lot of mining of data. We looked at data disaggregated by race, by geography, by issue, housing, economic development, health, education. And we started to see trends there too in terms of disparities by race and income. And so the data really supported the stories really that we were hearing from communities and the opinions and the expertise that we were hearing from partners and thought leaders and policy people. We took all of that data to our board. We have an annual retreat of our board where we engage the board in strategic discussions. And we brought the data, we brought what we had heard from community, but we also went through an exercise for the board of really taking key bodies of work that we were engaged in and presenting that to the board and presenting it in a way that basically asked the question, how our work might change if we were to adopt a more explicit lens focused in on racial equity and economic inclusion. Long story short is the data was compelling, the stories were good, and the presentations were excellent. But that our board response to it was twofold. One was, yes, it feels like this is an area where we need to focus more attention and be responsive to around racial equity and economic inclusion. But the second piece of feedback that we got from the board was that our presentations, kind of taking our existing work and kind of describing what it would look like if we had a racial equity lens, felt to them like old wine in new bottles, I'll put it that way. And that if we really wanted to focus in on this issue and move the needle, we probably needed to go back and do some planning and do that planning unencumbered by how we were currently structured and the array of activities that we were already engaged in. And so that really was what I would call the first chapter, the visioning, the listening, the strategy work, and then getting the kind of marching orders from the board to go forth and plan deeper and implement. The next phase of work around implementation really has several components to it that really just touch on all the aspects of what it means to be a community foundation. The first thing that we did was we actually reorganized the foundation around this new North Star that we adopted around racial equity and economic inclusion. For decades, we have been organized around issue areas like community development and community health and arts and culture and education and the environment. And we continue to focus in and invest in those areas, but now we do it from the vantage point of really how we're organized. And we're organized around what we characterize as the pathways to equity, which revolve around the concepts of people, place, and power. With the people work really about how we lift the floor for low-wage workers and increase the economic mobility in the region. That work also leads us into a whole nother area of work that is about removing systemic barriers to opportunity, and that gets us involved in issues like immigration and criminal justice reform and education and those kinds of things. And that's where the people work is. The place work is really about the recognition that place matters. Where you live can either be a springboard to opportunity or a sentence to the lack of opportunity. And so we want to invest in strategies that are really about the springboard. We have a housing crisis in the Bay Area, so a lot of our work is focusing on protecting low-income tenants and combating gentrification and displacement that's associated with rising housing and real estate values. We also, through this area of work, think a lot about and invest in arts and culture. We think it's a really important part of placemaking, and so we invest a lot in small community-based arts organizations as part of our work in place. And then we also support kind of anchor institutions, whether they're service providers or others that are present in the neighborhood. The last piece of focus for us is on power. And for us, it's about the recognition that we can have all the bright ideas that we want under people in place, but if it's not connected to a really strong constituency of people demanding change, then the change won't happen at the level that we would need it to, or be sustainable for the amount of time that we think is important in order to achieve change. So the power work is really about amplifying the political and civic voice of low-income communities and communities of color in the Bay Area. And so that's how we're now organized. It's impacted our grant making. Our focus has impacted our grant making. We now give larger grants to fewer organizations. We provide more general operating support over a longer period of time for our grant making, and really develop a partnership with folks to help them in not just financially, but in technical assistance ways towards executing on that policy agenda. It's impacted our relationship with donors. We continue to meet all donors who come to us where they are and really do everything that we can do to help them with their grant making and their philanthropy. But we also invite donors to be a part of the journey that we're on around learning more and executing on an agenda that's about racial equity and economic inclusion. So we have forums with donors. We create the space for them to have conversations with one another about these issues. We try to create learning communities so that we can create safe space for people to have those tough and sometimes awkward and uncomfortable conversations about race and class. And so that's really how the work with donors has evolved as well. It's impacted our investments. We have about $1.5 billion of assets under management. That's probably split at probably 60-40 for us. 60% of it, that is endowment, and 40% is donor advised. But we really, in our investment work, also look to align how we invest the endowment with our mission. We created a mission-aligned investment program to do that. We also create a loan program, a program-related investment program aligned with that work as well. And we look to invest more and more of our resources with fund managers that are women or people of color. And at this point, we have a little bit over 30% of our assets under management are with fund managers who are women and people of color. We've also really thought about how this work impacts our internal culture and policies. We've launched 2 separate internal equity working groups inside the foundation that engage all the different parts of the foundation and every level of the foundation to examine our practices, our policies, and to make sure that we're walking the talk when it comes to racial equity and economic inclusion. The way that we talk about it is that we want an internal culture that is commensurate with our external ambition. And so that work is ongoing for us as well. And then the last thing I will say about implementation that's been important for us is we have invested a lot of time and energy and training across the entire staff in really adopting a results orientation towards the work that we are doing. So we've designated population level results in the Bay Area that we are looking to move the needle on. We have a whole vernacular and language and framework that we use to make sure that we are adhering to being able to kind of quantify our impact. We know that everything that's important is not measurable, but we think that those things that we can measure, we should measure, and we should do that disaggregated by race. And so that's been another ongoing commitment of ours. The third phase of the work is the work that we are engaged in now. I know I'm not talking to anybody in a way that they're not familiar when I say that the last year has been a year of reflection for us and the communities that we serve when it comes to racial justice, racial equity, economic inclusion, systemic racism. And so as an organization that's been focused in on this for 4 or 5 years, we've really been thinking about 2 things. What is it that we can do to capture what we've learned and share that with people who are entering this field and becoming more committed to racial equity and economic inclusion and addressing systemic racism? But the second is, what does it look like for us to double down on our commitment? And there are 3 different dimensions of that doubling down for us. One is that we really are starting to focus in on addressing anti-Black, anti-Native racism as a part of addressing the overall systemic racism that we see in our communities. We think that that is important because it begins to address some of the foundational aspects of racial exclusion and injustice in our community. It's not that Black or Native community is experiencing that any worse than other communities, but the experience of slavery, bondage, the pursuit of free labor in this country, we think is a foundational aspect of understanding race in our region. We also think that the genocide that was associated with the pursuit of free land in this country is important and foundational as well. And so we've really been pushing on that. At the same time, we think that in order for us to get to where we want to go, it is important to embrace transformative solidarity. We think for far too long, we've been indoctrinated with the notion that one community's gain has to be another community's setback. We reject that notion and really think that it's important for all of us to be able to work together towards the things that we're achieving. And so while we definitely want to focus in on BIPOC communities, we want to do that in a way that's inclusive and advancing a solidarity message and approach. Last is we want to engage in a conversation about the economy that is restorative and reparative. We really think that it's important for us, particularly us as holders of wealth and opportunity and power as a result, to understand how we've gotten here and the importance of really having a more thoughtful approach to economic opportunity and inclusion as we move forward. So those are the things that are on the horizon for us, and those are the things that we are working on. I want to thank you for inviting me to share our story. Again, it's really about, for us, it's been about visioning and strategy and listening. It's about implementation. And more recently, it's about doubling down on our commitment. I wish you all the best of luck on your journey. Again, I want to thank you for the invitation to join you today. And if you need any advice, or if we can be helpful in any way in sharing what we've learned and helping you make new mistakes rather than replicate the one we've made, we're happy to do that. And so thanks again.
Mr. Blackwell, thank you for your inspiring work in the Bay Area and for showing how our foundation in Worcester can be more inclusive, diverse, welcoming, compassionate, and driven. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon, and we look forward to incorporating some of your best practices here on the East Coast. Now on to our final order of business in today's program. Before we move on to our individual cocktails, well, we know if we were in person, we will be eyeing the bartenders and preparing to network with our colleagues just about now. We have one more important item, and that is our 2021 Renaissance Award. Just a note of procedure as to why we gave An Vu her award earlier in the program. According to our bylaws, board members are not eligible to receive the Renaissance Award. And as you likely noticed, An Vu both received the 2020 award and became a board member today. So we needed to present to her last year's award and then nominate her to the board. A technicality we know, but an important distinction we wanted to make to you all. Okay, now on to 2021 and what a year it has been. Our 2021 Renaissance Award winner has spent his career fighting an overwhelmingly negative portrayal of Worcester's youth in the media. Born and raised in the Roxbury section of Boston and a graduate of Boston English High School and then Holy Cross, he was drafted into the NBA by the Milwaukee Bucks in the mid-'80s. He eventually played professionally in Europe before returning to Worcester, where his entire focus shifted to the betterment of Worcester through working with its youth. His desire to highlight the positive achievements of the community's young led him to start Pride Productions, an organization dedicated to educating local youth about media and technology. The result was Youth Unity, a half-hour talk show that aired on Worcester's public access network, created, designed, and produced by young people, primarily from the Boys and Girls Club of Worcester. He then founded Unity Radio in 2013 and has continued working with youth in Worcester for educational purposes in the radio industry. He has been a mentor for many, putting everything he has into creating a sustainable, nonprofit media ecosystem for Worcester youth. I am very proud to present the 2021 Renaissance Award to Ernie Floyd Jr. Before we hear from Ernie, we have a special message from someone who would like to say a few words.
Ernie, congratulations on receiving the Renaissance Award from the Greater Worcester Community Foundation. I cannot think of a person who's more deserving of this recognition than you. I remember when we first met at the YMCA through the Minority Achievers Program and the impact that you had on me and many of us who participated in the program. You've always taken time throughout the years to just check in on us and see how we are doing. The impact that you've had on the lives of youth in the city is undeniable. Thank you so much for what you have done for our community and for our young people, and I wish you nothing but boundless success. Congratulations. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, Greater Worcester Community Foundation, for this unique and prestigious honor. I'm humbled and I'm, of course, flattered. And I accept this award on behalf of other worthy potential recipients right here in the city of Worcester. And what I think of that comes immediately to mind is now more than ever, I hear the old adage, it takes a village. And during my childhood in Boston, I can recollect that my village was my family and the community. There was countless people telling me that I can do it. You can be this, you can be that, and we can offer other opportunities as well. And I took advantage of that, and that's all I knew. And I traveled throughout New England during my summers because my mom sent me up to New Hampshire and to Maine, and she took me out of the city and she wanted me to explore other different endeavors. So I spent a lot of time in the mountains. I learned how to hike. I did a lot of canoeing, even archery. I even learned how to swim, and I competed in 1 mile swimming events out there in the lake, Lake Winnisquam up in New Hampshire, in the Maine area as well. As I grew, I experienced these opportunities. And in addition, athletics became a part of my life that took on another whole adventure, growing tall, like 6 inches in one year. And ultimately, it brought me to Worcester to attend, as you mentioned earlier, the College of the Holy Cross, where I had over 250 choices to attend schools around the country, and I chose the College of the Holy Cross. But ultimately, it brought me to Worcester, and I knew the importance of positive exposure in an environment. And that's why I support young people here in our community. I believe they deserve the same opportunities, and they can too grow up to become positive role models and give back as I do. I would like to thank my family and communities in Boston and in Worcester. And finally, I dedicate this award to my mom. She's in heaven, and she reminds me every day to be strong, to stay positive, and do the right thing. And once again, I'd like to thank the Greater Worcester Community Foundation for this award, to remind me I am and I have done the right thing. Thank you.
Wow, Ernie, congratulations. Spectacular talk, and I'm so proud to be a fellow graduate of the college. And you know the Jesuit principle is men and women for others, and no one has lived that principle greater than you in this community. Thanks for everything that you have done throughout your time in the Worcester community. Can't wait to see you, man. And with that excitement, we bid you good evening. We thank you all for being here. We're really excited about the future of the foundation. We're happy to be seeing you all again in person really soon. And who knows, I might get lucky and get another Joe Salois quality hug. Please stay safe and get vaccinated if you're not. Be well, everyone. Good night.